Tonight we're telling one of the most incredible rescue stories you'll ever hear. Last November, a group of whitewater rafters from Lithuania was taking on Tasmania's rugged Franklin River when one of them became trapped in rushing frigid water. For the first time, we can reveal extraordinary footage of the efforts to free the man as rescuers, doctors and his friends worked against the clock.
I got a text message saying there's a job on the Franklin, who's available. We just knew there was a man trapped, might require a medical team.
In your own mind you think, OK, yep, we should be done and dusted within a couple of hours. However, it didn't quite turn out that way.
How does someone's leg go into a crack and not come out? Like, surely there's a way, there's always a way. And there wasn't.
You could see the determination in Valdos's eyes. Even though his body was deteriorating, in his mind, he was not giving up.
We could definitely see a significant deterioration, and we were getting closer to that decision point where we were going to have to get him out by any means.
I felt so conflicted. If this goes ahead, you might kill him. But even if it all goes perfectly, he'll never be the same guy again.
There was a moment before I started of, I don't want to do this. I really, really don't want to do this.
I couldn't imagine how long he can survive because time was running.
I remember the Lithuanian doctor sort of asking in his broken English, he's like, he's dead, isn't he? And I couldn't say yes, but I definitely couldn't say no. The Franklin's a pretty formidable and wild place. It's incredibly remote. There's no real road access.
There's only two ways to get there. One is by a helicopter, and the other option is to, embark on a rafting trip.
Southwest of Tassie is a magnificent place, but can bring you unstuck really quickly. What can start as an absolute magnificent day can probably end up being your worst nightmare. You get a decent rain overnight, and then all of a sudden, the waters rise quite quickly.
There are all those boulder-type rapids that just come with huge risk when you paddle them. You just need to take a great deal of care.
My relative said, "Be careful. It's very dangerous river."
There have been a number of lives taken on the Franklin, so it's a river that you need to respect, I guess you'd say.
Sveiks, Povilai! Ilgai nesimatėm. First time I met Valdas, we were paddling in Peru.
Nu ką, draugelį? Susitikimą.
Valdas, with a rafting experience of close to 50 years, he was paddling very heavy rivers in Siberia and other regions of former Soviet Union. He is very brave and don't feel any fear of that.
Jisai kaip ir mūsų ta karta buvo šiek tiek jaunesnė ir mes su pavydu žiūrėjom ir svajojom kažkada plaukioti taip kaip Valdas. Neįtikėtina, tikrai buvo labai didelė pagarba iš mūsų pusės ir tikrai svajonė su tokiais žmonėm keliauti ir...
Valdas visą laiką mums yra pagrindinis mūsų šitą...
In Christmas party, somewhere in 2012, we were drunken and we started to build crazy plans. We decided that we should visit at least one river in every continent and to raise our Lithuanian flag.
When Valdas grew up, Lithuania was occupied by Russians. You couldn't say what you think, just your freedom of religion was destroyed. You couldn't travel. You couldn't travel anywhere except Soviet Union. So now, why we like to travel? I think it's a celebration of independence.
From 2015 up to now, we have visited Nepal, then South America, US, Africa, and the last continent was Australia. We chose the River Franklin in Tasmania. I like this because it is very wild river.
Valdas was part of a group of 12 friends. They set off from Lithuania in November 2024. They made their way to Victoria.
Vykome į Australiją, vienas mūsų žmogus, vienas mūsų bendražygis atsigulė į ligoninę su plaučių uždegimu, mes likome 11. Dar vienas iš mano ekipažo narių susižeidė ranką. Nu, žodžiu, taip viskas atrodė, kad ta gamta, upė ten nusiteikusi prieš mus.
At starting point on a Collingwood Bridge, there was the place where we needed to register. There were the signs that could be risky, and you take your own responsibility.
Sveiki!
Bet vanduo buvo mums labai palankus. Mes išplaukėm, tas intakas Franklino, kur visi pradeda.
After several hours in the evening, started heavy rain, and the water went up approximately 80 centimeters, and our tents were wet. So next morning, we decided to take the forest and wait when the water level will be dropped down, and then in a third day continued.
Valdas was the leader of his kata raft, and that was because he'd been rafting for almost 50 years, so he was incredibly experienced. A kata raft has 2 separate pontoons, and the men carried all their food and equipment in these rafts.
On day 5, we wake up very early in the morning because we needed to reach Coruscates and to reach campsite.
You probably start to really notice the remoteness of the Franklin when you're in that Great Ravine.
The Great Ravine, by definition, is an area where, the mountains are close by and it goes into a very steep kind of landscape. And at the bottom of that, you get several significant rapids through there, including the Coruscades.
We arrived at Coruscades Rapid. For scouting, we used drone because we are not taking risk without knowing what is waiting us in front.
Mes galim dabar šitą virvę iš karto. Mes žiūrėjom į tą slenkstį ir po to vis tik nusprendėm, kad dar laukia daug slenkščių prieš akis ir mes nusprendėm, kad laivus apsinešim.
This day was very heavy for me because I was sick. I was sitting on the bank, on the stone, just filming. And Valdas was just working on the main rock. He was jumping from one rock to another and just slipped and dropped to the hole with the water. My friends were running to help to Valdas, and somebody cried. Valdas fell and trapped his leg.
Jisai įkrito nugarą ir jisai po to apsisuko ir jo ta koja kažkaip užsuko. Aš ten rankom, kai čiupinėjau, ten, ta prasme, buvo jinai įkišta ir susukta tarp uolų. Ten toks ankštas tarpelis.
From the very beginning, we fixed Valdas with the safety ropes and trying in different directions to take him from this hole. Valdas was quite positive, just saying, I cannot take my foot back.
Kokią 40 gal minučių patys ten bandėm visaip ištraukti. Niekaip. Ir tada jau nusprendėm, kad reikia kviesti gelbėtojus.
We sent SOS signal via satellite phone. We felt uncertainty and we didn't know how everything will finish.
The day was coming to an end, and my phone rang at about 3:30, and it was our police radio room.
Information had been received from a rafting party that one of their members had fallen into the river and was trapped between some rocks. So we were activated to attend the scene. It is critical time-wise that we get people there due to the possibility of obviously hypothermia and the potential for the river to rise.
I was part of the first crew to head out into the Franklin that evening to essentially start the ball rolling on getting to this rafting party.
Our role was to get further information initially, how trapped that person was, pictures of the scene, severity of any injuries, and pass that back.
We're anticipating this being a protracted incident. The Swiftwater team has been mobilised.
We hear noise from helicopter. Finally, and always applauds that the help arrives.
We were in the valley, and then we saw all the canoes, and then we saw him stuck next to a rapid. And then we took our time just assessing where and how we were going to, first of all, drop the first people in.
We couldn't land there, and we had to winch myself and Mitch Parkinson into that location right next to where Valdas was.
The workspace that we ended up going down onto was a large rock platform. Unfortunately, being so wet, it turns into something that I would align with an ice skating rink. It becomes really quite unsafe really quickly.
Any idea where his foot's caught, or is it both feet? Left foot. His left foot? Yeah.
Valdas in the rock pool did look quite concerning. The water flow was significant, and he appeared to be pinned up against the rock. It was clear that we're going to need some specialty tools, and that message was then relayed back to the aircraft.
Initially, we had the rescue crew from Tas Police and some Ambulance Tasmania officers, and then Nate and Ace were inserted in there as the Swiftwater team.
Our ETA overhead will be 2023 minutes. Do we have any updates from the scene, Bunny James?
The chopper ride was about a 30-minute flight. where we winched in with our equipment.
How are you, Jimmy? Oh, yeah, one of those days.
From the time we got on scene, I think we had another hour and a half of daylight.
So it's his left leg that's caught?
Maybe it's stuck right this. Yeah.
Right.
You understand?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
right side, you can move right side.
Right.
But left side are under the stone.
Under the stone.
I was the retrieval coordinator on that day, and I was also the responding clinician. I got a handover from my colleague that said that an individual was immersed up to their neck, and it was felt at the time that it was going to be really unlikely that they were going to survive.
Every 2 hours, new helicopter was coming with different specialists and different equipment.
Being winched into a scene like that can be quite intense. You know people are working hard to get you onto what is essentially like a 2x2 metre pad. When the helicopter flies away, you suddenly feel sort of quite vulnerable, but you switch into ambo mode and start sort of assessing the scene.
At this stage, consider comms in the ravine entirely unreliable, and we will likely only have comms when you overfly at 22:30.
We kind of gathered together and had a brief about what was happening.
65-year-old male, fit, well, no medical history, no daily medications.
I could see Valdas in the water. He looked, at that point, quite vigorous.
It seems to be, for the most part, in relatively good spirits, and we're doing our best to keep him warm.
Valdas has probably been in the water 5 or more hours at that point. I think he understood his predicament, but he was very calm about that, unusually calm. And I think he was probably also in pain, and he was very calm about that as well. He was the perfect patient in many ways.
What me and Nate want to do is to try and get down to him. We might do a combination of hauling and lifting.
We try and manually manipulate the leg. Nate pushing, me pulling. Then we tried to put a sling around his leg as far down as we could.
Nice. Yeah. That's around the top of his leg. It's not down the bottom. Right.
The pressure of the water was evident once it sort of got in there. You could feel that like an undertow trying to pull your legs down there.
And I'm trying. Yeah. Yeah.
We pulled him down, we pulled him backwards, forwards at varying different levels of force.
So I've got spreaders, I've got a hydraulic jack, and I've got airbags.
We started using the hydraulic equipment. There was a gap where I could get the tips of the spreaders in. The theory was to try and get a little bit of movement in the rock, enough so Nate could actually pull Valdas's leg out. However, that didn't work. There was some talk around, could we jackhammer some of the rock, but that wasn't super practical. Could have actually made things worse.
There was an understanding across our group that if anyone had an idea, as far-fetched as it might be in any combination of our equipment, we would try every single one of those.
It was looking less and less likely that we would be able to move him. His knee was so stuck.
It seems like his leg has just gone perfectly into a shape made for his leg. And even if you got him into exactly the right position, which might be, upside down and tied in a knot, his leg was still jammed in such a way that you would have to break it more to pull it out. There was a real difficulty with interacting with the Lithuanians because English was very much their second or maybe third or fourth language.
In the next half an hour, some warm food. Are you happy to do that? Sure. Do you need help to go with you?
We are communicating with Valdas in our language and explaining him everything. And the one of paramedics said, please bring each half an hour hot teas and hot food. I am a doctor and I understand the risk of hypothermia. So we did, and this continued all the night.
The water temperature at the time was probably around 8 to 10 degrees. The outside temperature was actually one of the mildest nights for summer, so we had that in our favour.
It actually took quite a while for Valdas to become sort of dangerously hypothermic. Even into the early hours of the morning, Valdas was actually doing remarkably well. His heart rate remained very constant. His cognition and the way he was talking and responding and moving were all exactly what you would want.
Valdas is quite strong person. He will never say that he feels bad, feels some pain. He closed person.
Valdas was 65 years old when the incident happened. He was working as a database administrator. He was really fit because he was going on these rafting adventures with friends all the time. He didn't have any kids and he wasn't married, but he was really close to his sister Raza.
Valdas, jisai yra matematikas, jisai yra logikas. Jis turi apgalvoti visus ten IT momentus raftinge. Jis daug nekalba niekada. Jisai nesipasakoja labai daug. Labai užsispyręs buvo, labai užsispyręs. Bet šiaip tai labai geras.
I think Lithuanians are very courageous and strong people. We were always fighting because we would like to have our freedom. That courage and resilience, Valdas has that, definitely.
I've just never seen someone so resilient and so strong and so open to all of the methods around him to free him all night. And I still think it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Valdas had been in the water for around 16 hours and the elements are starting to really get the better of him. So hypothermia was a big risk.
It was about 6:30 where we essentially said, well, we've got one more shot at pulling him out. And that was quite a drastic attempt to essentially break his leg as we pulled him out.
That was another failed attempt. Then we had another brief with the doctors and paramedics who were saying, look, I think we've exhausted all our options.
It was at that point we had to make the decision to amputate.
I think we all sort of came to the realisation that this is the last resort, but the only resort at this point in time.
It was a big mental hurdle, realising that we were now going to cut his leg off. I felt so conflicted. I'd never, ever had to hurt someone to save their life.
It wasn't an easy decision. Actually, I just want to speak to one of my retrieval doctor colleagues just so I could share the decision. But with the communication problems we had down in the ravine, that wasn't going to be possible. So certainly for me, I felt isolated.
The paramedic came to me and said, probably we don't have another chance. to save Valdas, and we will need to amputate his leg. So I went to Valdas, asked how does he feel. He said, I try to survive. I said, Valdas, now rescuers will try to take you with a very power, and your leg can be broken. I didn't say him that they are preparing a amputate. Valdas just asked, so I will become a handicaptor? Maybe, Valdas. But if not, you will die here in this hole. And maybe in few hours. And we shook hands, and Valdas made this movie. Like agreement.
I felt that Valdas had an understanding of what was about to happen or what needed to happen. And, you know, he clearly communicated his choice.
From memory, he just sort of said, yes, okay. Nodded his head. And that was it.
So we talked about doses of drugs. We talked about where we were going to be positioned. Then we talked about how we were going to remove the leg, basically, and free Valdas.
Dr. Nick, Mitch and Rowan were prepping their drugs, prepping all their gear, getting ready. And then while all that was happening, unfortunately, we had what we call an incident within an incident.
Walking down to the edge of the rock, I just lost my footing and I slipped. And put my hand back and all my weight went through my hand. And as soon as I've fallen, I immediately knew that I'd broken something. And I kind of picked my arm up to have a look at it, and I could see there was this big bend in it. And I was like, that's just terrible timing, Nick. A few expletives as well.
One of the paramedics said, Ace, we've got a bit of a problem. He said, Doc Nick's Doc's just fallen over and broken his wrist.
There was only one doctor, and that was Nick, and so we needed him in good condition.
So straight away then we sort of knew that the amputation was going to go ahead as soon as we planned. I think Doc Nick was pretty shattered. When you're in those scenarios, you like to see them through. However, you know, that wasn't going to be the case, unfortunately, for Nick.
The night had been complex enough. We are all 20 or so hours into this mission. So the best thing we could do was request new, fresh personnel.
The word back from Ambulance Tas was they were sourcing another doctor and paramedic to come out on site. There's no doubt that Valdas's condition was worsening. So we were having those thoughts of, you know, is he going to hold on long enough for us to undertake the amputation?
I wanted to see Valdas alive, but time was running, and also his power and strength were dramatically decreasing.
The group is really up against the clock. So that was the big question. Could he hold on until another doctor arrived?
I prayed to God. That's all I could do.
No one ever trains how to amputate